I'm nervous. I don't know why, but I'm gonna babble for a second to prepare myself. So, I'm not sure if I'm supposed to state my name, but I am Marina and I'm 27 and I have depression and anxiety. And I've had them for a while and navigated through the waters. So let's see. Um, I think I displayed symptoms of depression when I was younger due to a divorce, my parents' divorce. And my mother sought counseling for me at that time. And then the symptoms really didn't reoccur until high school. And I was in an unhealthy relationship. And so I would say I was about 16 when the symptoms arose again. Differences in my behavior. I really became a different person altogether. I lost the sparkle in my eye. It's one of the most painful things to hear. But a lot of people told me it was just gone. That I just used to light up a room. And that I had this joy in my spirit and the sparkle in my eye. And that it was just kind of gone and my eyes looked lost. I became argumentative, difficult to get along with, was very self-involved. I slept a lot. I didn't want to eat much. I had a lot of trouble getting along with my family. I distanced myself from a lot of friends, a lot of people who loved me. I abandoned a lot of the things that were important to me, and I stopped spending time on the causes that I believed in. And then eventually I became more aggressive, never violent towards others, but began breaking things. I began cutting. And like I said, a lot of that came from a relationship that was unhealthy that I just wasn't able to cope with. Triggers. On a daily basis, I think it's not so much that I have to fight the triggers on a daily basis, but I've had to learn to get into a mindset where I choose happiness, where I force myself to get up and do things even if I don't feel like it, even if I don't want to. But I'd say on a regular basis I experience triggers. Sometimes just feeling helpless in a situation, especially with relationships, or work or finances, just things that you can't control. Those are triggers for me, and I have to fight off the urge to cut. Sometimes I'm successful and sometimes I'm not. Of course, my ultimate goal is to be successful all the time. But yes, I do experience triggers regularly. When I feel the urge to cut or the urge to harm myself, I try to be prepared with a pretty solid list of coping skills. Sometimes it's really good for me to be around other people, just so that I know that I'm being held accountable for my actions and that somebody is there for me, but also seeing what I'm doing. It makes you more aware of your behavior. And if no one's around, sometimes I'll just go to the grocery store even if I have nothing to buy, just because there's people around. Sometimes I just have to separate myself from the situation happening in my head long enough to change my thought pattern so that I can move past it. And that's really what works best for me. Occasionally that means going for a run or doing a fun activity, making music, making art, taking a bubble bath. But whatever it is, it's just separating myself from that, getting out of my own head for a little while. I go through periods where I struggle on a daily basis, but thankfully, with the help of medication and a lot of therapy, I don't feel like I struggle every day anymore, and that's a huge relief. I sometimes I'll go through phases with the depression where it's just a little harder to get motivated and a little harder to get going, and I'll have to sort of start over and retrain myself on how to think and get back into some activities that I enjoy and find things to do where I can experience the joy that there is to be had in life, because there are so many opportunities to experience that joy. But I have to remind myself every once in a while. Sometimes it'll happen every day for a while, and sometimes I'll feel really good for a couple weeks. Never really know. It's kind of the mystery. I have attempted suicide before. It was hard for me to see it that way because I was under the influence of alcohol and prescription medication to treat my depression. So I wasn't thinking clearly, but it was a pivotal point for me in my treatment and the way I dealt with and saw my depression. I walked out into the ocean, fully clothed, just straight out, with no plan of returning. The seas were high, the sharks were out. My best friend watched from the shore and screamed and cried, hoping that I would hear her over the roar of the waves. And still to this day, I don't know how I heard her, but somehow I did. She had 911 dialed on her phone and was taking off her shoes to come in after me, and I just heard her voice, and it's like I snapped out of it and came back. But the next morning when I woke up, she'd already written a song about it, and hearing the story told in the third person, I realized just how differently that situation could have gone if I hadn't turned back, or if she hadn't been there, or if I hadn't heard a voice saying, please come back. Or if the waves were too strong and I wasn't stable enough. There's just so many things that could have changed in my life, could have ended and affected all the people that I loved so quickly because of that one choice. After that night, and after waking up and hearing my friend's perspective and version of the story, I immediately knew that it was time to get help, that something wasn't okay. I hadn't been feeling okay for months. When I drove to work, I just thought about my car going over the side of the bridge, or ways that I could end everything, and even taking out a life insurance policy only to find out they won't honor it if you kill yourself. But that's how serious I was, and that scared me. And there was a night that I also drank too much to cover up the pain that I was feeling because of the depression that I just felt like I couldn't shake. And I ended up in the emergency room. They wouldn't give me a room, so I was just in a hallway on an IV until they could get me out of there. It was clear I was in the way. But I remember calling my mother, still probably not fully coherent, but I remember everything she said. And I just cried into the phone at 4 o'clock in the morning, and I just begged her to let me go, to please let me go, because I couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't fight the battle. And I'll never forget the pain in her voice and the sound of her crying when she told me how much that would just break her heart if I ever did that, and that she could never, ever, ever let me go. So after walking out into the ocean that night, I realized it was time to get some help. So that night, I checked myself into a short-term inpatient psychiatric facility, and I attended every meeting that I could. I got every bit of information that I possibly could. I was put on different medication. Some of it helped, some of it didn't. It's a process, but I learned some coping skills and kind of just gave me a way to reset my brain, reset my life to where I could figure out how to make it work. It's absolutely affected my family. I have a wonderful family that loves me very much. And the pain that I've caused my mother at the thought of losing me, I just probably will never fully understand. It's affected relationships. It scares people. It scares them because it makes you unpredictable. It makes you dangerous to yourself. And then danger to them because you could hurt them. So it's hard being in any kind of relationship. And then I have family members that I still don't really know how it's affected. But it's definitely affected my relationships. I think medication is a pivotal part of treatment, but I don't believe it's ever okay to only use medication. And by that, I mean, if you're taking medication to treat depression and anxiety or whatever mental illness you're suffering from, I believe it should always be in conjunction with therapy. Because if you're not taking the time and putting in the work and putting in the effort to change the way you think and the way you cope and the way you deal with life, there's really no point in being on medication. It's just a band-aid. It's just making you feel better for the day, but you're not really changing how you live. So I don't believe it's a good practice to be on medication if you're not seeking therapy. But I think that sometimes medication is the only way that you can come to a place where you can think clearly enough and rationally enough to really sort out some of the issues that might be going on, or sort out some of the pain you might be experiencing, so that you can move forward and actually make some changes in your life. Sometimes it's permanent, sometimes it's not. For me, I don't know if it will. Maybe I'll be on it my whole life. Maybe I won't, but I don't think it's anything to be ashamed of either way. If you need it for a little while or if you need it for a lifetime. If it helps you be safe and if it helps you be happy and fix those chemicals that just don't want to work right, then I think it's absolutely an effective method of treatment. I know I'm not alone, but I could see how a lot of people would. I've had a lot of very close encounters with people with depression, anxiety, bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, all kinds of issues, addiction issues, and I was taught from an early age that it's okay to ask for help and that mental illness is really no different than having diabetes. It's a disease, and then you get treatment. So, I don't feel alone. Maybe I did at one point, but I don't feel alone. When people find out about my hospitalizations, and or my depression and anxiety, sometimes they do treat me differently. I noticed after being hospitalized that there were several friends who didn't want to go out with me as much in social settings, and I was really confused as to why. And even though I'd never personally given them any reason to feel that way, they were scared that I might be unstable or unpredictable, or that I might put them in some sort of danger or put them in a position where they had to be responsible for me. So, yes, I mean, I think when people feel like they're responsible for you, or you might do something dangerous to yourself, and that they would be the one accountable, so to speak, they do treat you differently. Some don't, but it's all about their frame of reference, and a lot of people really don't understand. Living with a mental illness, yes, you can absolutely be successful. Absolutely. In all aspects of life, in relationships, in your work life, as a parent, as a sibling, as a child, as an employee, yes, absolutely. Success is not something I'm worried about at all for me or anybody else suffering from mental illness. We're people. We're not defined by an illness. That's not us. That's just something we have. That's not who we are. And I really believe that if you make a commitment to treatment, you can live a perfectly functional, normal life, if there is such a thing as normal life. And despite my thoughts and feelings, I know that I'm working towards overcoming them, and I believe that I will. I believe there will be a day when cutting isn't a temptation anymore. When I know how to handle my depression. When I'm already surrounded by so many people that love me, not even in spite of, but because of all the things about me, including mental illness. And I don't think it gets much more successful than that. And I do believe the urges will stop, because I'm working on it hard. There's always... I'm going to stop and make sure this is clear. There's always hope. Always. If you believe nothing else, believe that. There's hope. There are resources. There are options. There's so much to learn. There's so much to understand. There's so many ways to grow. There's so much information. There are so many people willing to help you. And it may not be easy right away to figure that out or find it, but it's there. And you have to believe it. You have to have hope. You have to. Even when it seems like there's no way there could be hope, fake it till you make it. I believe that wholeheartedly. Fake it till you make it. You just keep moving and keep telling yourself that it will get better, and it does. And those answers do come if you seek them. My struggle has allowed me to help other people. It actually led me to work in an inpatient psychiatric facility where I worked for over a year. My patients don't know my background. They don't know how much I understand where they are. But the fact that I can be empathetic and be kind and loving and gentle and understanding for them lets me know that it wasn't for nothing. My journey isn't for nothing. There's always going to be somebody to help, and that's why I'm okay talking about it. Because I believe if we don't talk about it, there's never going to be a change. People are never going to understand. Humanity needs to get a better understanding of mental illness. That's only going to happen when we talk about it. So that's why I'm talking about it. Is it the easiest thing to talk about? No. Absolutely not. But how are we going to help people understand unless we talk about it? I've also been able to help really close friends because I was able to spot their signs and symptoms after experiencing it myself. You never know how the effort that you put in to growing and changing and working through your situation will allow you to pass along those skills to somebody else who might need them. And if necessary, you could help them get to the right resources. You could save somebody's life. So absolutely, it's led me to help other people. Let me make sure that was all the questions. Well, I think I've covered everything except, this is not a question, but it's something that I learned and that I reiterate to patients and friends. Seeking help is the bravest thing you could ever do. Ever. Think about how much easier it is to just blame things on other people, take out your problems on everyone else, live a miserable, unsuccessful life because you don't want to face the pain that's inside of you or your weaknesses that are inside of you or who you really are because you think it's bad. So facing that reality is the bravest thing anyone can do, and it should be celebrated. It should be celebrated all the time. If you have an anniversary of when you start treatment, celebrate it. Start it a month, then 6 months, then a year, and you'll realize just how much you've grown. But seeking help for mental illness or seeking help for suicide or suicidal ideation is the bravest thing you can do. So thanks guys for including me, and I wish you the best of luck with your project. Love you, Savannah.